Salud.
Salud.
It must be kind of a reunion for all of you. To the audiences at the Ashland Independent Film Festival who just got to see Sin La Habana, what an extraordinary talkback opportunity we have today. Very generously, we are joined by the director, the cinematographer, and the two leads of Sin La Habana. And so you all probably don't get to see each other much in the last year or so since you probably wrapped shooting. Is this a reunion of sorts for you?
Yeah, in a way, yeah, actually it is, because since basically the movie, since we're recording the movie, basically I haven't seen anyone like physically, obviously like in Zoom and stuff like that, but I think so, yeah.
And where are you zooming from right now, Yonah?
So I'm in Germany at the moment. So, and because of the situation, you know, the COVID and everything, so basically I cannot travel to anywhere. I cannot even go back to England. So I had to basically, I'm stuck here. I mean, not stuck because I have my work here too. So, but I'm basically, yeah, living here now.
Awesome, thank you. Yonah, who played Leonardo, and also we've got Evelyn, who played Sarah. Where are you zooming from? And have you been there for a while? Have you been sheltering in place, or are you in Canada? Tell us where you are.
Bueno, por mí, I'm going to speak in Spanish because
no?
it's better for me. So
Sí.
I'm very comfortable in Spanish. So, estoy ahora mismo en Canadá. Yo siempre le digo a Kaveh que prácticamente he hecho realidad su película, porque vine a Canadá y tomé la oportunidad. Y bueno, aquí estoy trabajando y viviendo. Ya estoy cumpliendo los 3 años ya de estar aquí en Montreal.
So you really have a parallel life. Tienes como una experiencia paralela de Sara. Ahí está.
Bueno, con Sara a nivel romance, no.
No. Ni abogada, ¿no? Ni abogada.
Ni abogada. Yo soy bailarina de ballet, igual que Yonah. Bueno, no tan igual, porque, o sea, terminé mi carrera, estuve bailando ballet. He estudiado también actuación durante la carrera de ballet. Y entonces me he dedicado a otras cosas, a lo que es modelaje, publicidad, bailo samba, bailo belly dance, o sea, hago dentro del mundo del arte prácticamente de todo.
Thank you. And I mean, of course, our audiences have seen the incredible art of dance that you, Evelyn, and Yonah both, as well as acting, as well as being magnetic performers on the screen. How did you, Kaveh, pardon me for putting it this way, discover these amazing dancers who also were actors? What was the casting experience like for you, casting Sin La Habana?
Well, it was kind of different for the different roles. The role of Sarah, we auditioned a lot of people in Cuba, and Evelyn was just obviously the best fit for the role. I mean, you just look at her and the magnetism comes off it's like flying off of her. So that was easy. And then for Yonah, I actually met Yonah through Julio, the guy who plays the role of Julio in the film. And he himself is a former ballet dancer and a choreographer. He did all the choreography for the film. And he's been kind of the point person for a lot of ballet dancers who leave Cuba. So when I was talking to him about finding someone for that role, he immediately suggested Yonah. And it's also it's a nice kind of bit of synergy, because some of the concepts of the film were based loosely on Yonah's uncle, Carlos. So it was like a nice kind of full circle coming around.
Wow, great to hear. These are so many burning questions we have as an audience for this extraordinary film, which we're so fortunate I'm speaking with you on the week of its estreno, I think, of its world premiere, but I'll talk about that more in a moment. And Juan Pablo, I'm going to get to you. I have some very specific questions for the cinematographer in a moment, but as long as we're talking about pre-production, casting, were there any other unusual elements that were exceptional or perhaps typical of a multinational project like Sin La Habana to get permissions, location scouting, shooting between Canada and Havana? Were there any other anecdotes that any of you have that felt like it was unusual about this project?
I mean, everything was unusual about this project. So, I mean, getting all the permissions to shoot in Cuba is complicated, for sure. You have to go through the ICAIC, which is a government agency. And at one point, once we thought everything was set, they decided to refuse to allow us to shoot. We didn't know why. And so then we had to talk to the Minister of Culture, and turned out I had to make some changes to the script. But at one point we were looking at moving it to the Dominican Republic, but I really didn't want to do that. There's like endless complications on that end. And then there's also complications getting visas for everybody to come shoot in Canada, because Canadians are worried that when Cubans come to Canada that they're going to stay, like our friend Evelyn. So at first Evelyn's visa was refused, and then we had to, get lawyers involved. And it was just a lot of it. Part of why it took so long to get this film made was because of the bureaucratic and just, governmental complications involved. But then on the other hand, shooting in two different places was really important for the film, because the way you shoot in Cuba is totally different from the way you shoot in Canada. The way the crews operate is different. The way people move is totally different. And I wanted to get that feeling of difference. And that was also partly why I wanted to hire Juan Pablo, because Juan Pablo is neither Cuban nor Canadian. So I wanted someone who was going to be able to really see what was going on and feel the vibe of the place without having their own baggage of what that place means to them.
Very cool. That gives me an opportunity to ask Juan Pablo, were you seeing Cuba for the first time preparing to make this film? You're zooming to us from where now?
From Mexico City.
Oh, okay. El DF. And
yeah.
Was that your first exposure to Cuba, or had you been to Cuba before?
No, actually, the first time I went to Cuba, I went with Kaveh for scouting, like, I don't know, like a year and a half or 2 years before the actual shooting of the film.
Yeah.
And it was very fun because we were just having fun with the camera, exploring the places, feeling the vibe. It was more like a visit to try to understand the colors, the warmth, the movement.
Yeah.
And we spent I think it was like a week, I'm not sure. And then he called me like, okay, it's gonna be done, let's do it. And what Kaveh says is interesting, because for me, I'm not a part of any of the two worlds. So I'm like an outsider that has, the whole range of experience to catch. And that was very important, very interesting to me, because I haven't experienced that kind of heat or that kind of cold before.
Yeah.
And I had to adapt. Also, I had to move with the characters, to try to make my own way of dance with the camera, to be close to them, and to try to be truthful to what they are giving in front of the camera. So it was very, very interesting.
Excellent. I have to ask Evelyn, as buen bailador Juan Pablo, is he a good dancer? Did he dance with the camera?
Very good.
Yeah,
he's very good.
Do you agree, Yonah?
Yeah, definitely.
Él nos estuvo siguiendo todo el tiempo con la cámara, sobre todo Yonah, cuando le tocaba bailar acá en Canadá. Es bien difícil porque con los grandes saltos que tenía que hacer y esas cosas, yo me imagino que para Juan Pablo fue realmente una experiencia diferente.
Excellent. High praise, Juan Pablo, for...
I'm a ballet dancer now.
I'm sure you are. No. Put that on your resume.
Exactly. I will.
I wonder, I'm going to try something, Kaveh, that, you know how they do anatomy of a scene or inside the director's studio? I wanted to zoom in, but just in our minds, to a particular sequence and ask you all, almost like we were doing the director's commentary and the scene commentary, to speak a little about what you might remember of it and your impressions of it. In fact, there's dancing involved, and there's also some very interesting editing choices. I'm talking about an hour in, when Leonardo is at the meatpacking plant. He's wearing the the hair
white.
perfection, yes, and the booties, and he's talking to Sarah on probably WhatsApp. She says, "Oh, mira, ya estoy casado," right? And there's that scene where we're like, oh, okay, she's married to be able to make the travel. And then we go into what just blew me away, a dance scene inside the meatpacking plant with the fantasy of Romeo and Juliet by Tchaikovsky. I know you know the scene I'm talking about. Could you give us any comments on that, almost like the director's comments and the actor's, cinematographer's comments on how that sequence, that essential sequence in the last act, the third act, I think, of the film was put together?
Okay, well, I can start. I mean, the idea was that this is not going very well for Leonardo's character, and he's not getting the jobs he wants as a dancer in Montreal, or that he expected to get and that he thinks he deserves to get. And he's had to force his weird friend on the woman who he loves, and he doesn't really trust him. And, it's not a happy thing for him that she's just gotten married, but at the same time, it means he'll be able to see her again. So it's just like a very emotionally complex moment for him. And one thing that was important for us was to show that no matter what goes on in his life, he's always connected to dance. And someone, I don't remember who it was, but someone was like, yeah, dancers, they'll just always find a way to be doing something physical to stay sort of in shape in some way. And so originally that scene was going to be just like, there's this idea of having Yonah or Leonardo constantly doing some sort of physical movement throughout the film just to stay in shape. But then as we were shooting it, we were like, well, why don't we let ourselves get more poetic with this? This idea of Romeo and Juliet, the thing, he wasn't allowed to be Romeo in the Cuban ballet. And so now it's an opportunity for him to be Romeo, but in this kind of horrible space. Yeah. And I don't know, I was thinking a lot about Stanley Kubrick in that sequence. There's the spinning 2001 shot, and it was just like, okay, there's so much story and there's so much dialogue. Let's just give a moment for the film to kind of open up here. Yeah. So that was the idea behind it.
Yes. Thank you. Juan Pablo, anything to add from the cinematographic point of view? You were shooting inside an actual meat packing plant. It had to be with all that equipment. But also the previous scene leading into it, I have more questions about. But Juan Pablo, just your thoughts on that sequence.
No, I mean, we had a lot of film reference, but the place itself had an energy, and it was like a contradiction of what the scene was in a place like that. So if you put those things together, they become something new, something special, and something powerful that transcends the story itself. It puts the character in another level, and I think the audience too. So it was very, very fun and nice to see Yonah do his movements there.
I see. Yonah, and you with the booties, the plástico en los pies, bailando, and it's wet. What was that like for you?
I mean, it's really unusual, because normally you don't dance in in this kind of environment, obviously. But I guess it's like, when we, as a Cuban, I would say my experience, for example, before when I was at the school, we used to go to competition, international competition and stuff like that. And we sometimes didn't have a space to train or stuff like that. So we should put our clothes on and then go outside the hotel, outside the door in the lobby or whatever, and then train in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and for me, that was sort of I remember at that time, I was like, okay, this is sort of the same situation, I'm not in the studio, but I need to sort of keep it training.
Yeah.
And then, but it was quite good. So I feel comfortable with that.
Yes, thank you. And Evelyn, for me, I was struck by, because I don't know if it was supposed to be WhatsApp or some other video that was doing the call. Was that shot in La Habana, on Malecon or
that was made in Cuba, in the National Hotel in La Habana.
It really was. Yeah. I wasn't sure.
And it really was a phone call.
It really was.
By messenger. I don't remember very well, but was by messenger. And I talked to Yonah in front of me and
Wow.
with the phone like that.
Yeah.
It was very, very rare, but
Excellent.
okay.
You know, Evelyn, because you don't, I want to ask you, you do dancing in this film too, although you're bailarina, you have that scene in what is it called? The Callejón de Hamel?
Callejón de Hamel,
Yeah.
Fue realmente divertido porque conocía ya el lugar, pero solamente prácticamente como turista yo también, no como cubana, como tal que va y se divierte los fines de semana. No es un sitio al que yo voy normalmente, pero bailar ahí, en ese medio donde, por ejemplo, Yonah y yo tampoco, o sea, tengo experiencia con el folclore cubano, pero no hasta el punto de llegar a un sitio e improvisar y bailar así, y lo conozco y bailé. Entonces, Yonah y yo compartimos el mismo pánico, que yo creo que ha sido la primera vez, Yonah, que hemos tenido pánico escénico, de bailar enfrente de personas que tienen conocimiento total sobre la danza, sobre el ritmo sobre todo, y fue divertido. Y hubo un momento en que Kaveh me dice, por favor, ponte a bailar con ellos ahí, que vamos a filmarte. Entonces tenía yo a Pablo aquí en la cara y el público, porque estaba el público en vivo ahí, no solamente habían extras, sino que había público de la calle. Entonces ahí yo bailando para Ochun y en fin, actuando.
Wow.
Era muy divertido.
That was actually really funny because you, like how she said, she got more experience probably than me to dance this kind of dance. And to go there at the beginning, we arrived there, it was pretty empty. I was like quite comfortable. I was like, okay, this is fine. It's okay. It's not many people. But by the time that we had to shoot, oh my God, it was like full of people. And I was like, I think I was sort of like in shock. I was like, oh my God, these people, they know, and they know what they're gonna see in there. And I don't have idea how to actually dance this kind of dance.
Wow.
And at the end, I sort of had to do, because obviously I'm a classical ballet dance, you know, it's not the same if in front of like, I dance in front of like thousands of people, but I know what I'm doing, because this is what I'm basically training my entire life. But when they change and then put you in something that you actually don't have an idea to what you're doing in front of like lots of people that they know what they actually seen, it was like, oh my God. But then I had to sort of like concentrate and then just go with it.
And also it's very different when we dance with the audience on front, muy cerca, very near of you. And when we dance down a theater with the audience far away, it's not the same.
Wow.
It's not the same, not at all.
Kaveh, it must have been an issue of crowd control in some ways, that very scene. You probably, I congratulate you for shooting in Callejón de Hamel. It must have been a very challenging day of shooting.
I think other than some of the extreme cold that we dealt with in Montreal, it was probably the most challenging day, because we wanted to, we had to shoot it on a Sunday when all the tourists and when all the locals come, because we couldn't afford to hire hundreds of extras. So we needed to do it on a day when there was actually going to be that many people. So we really had to plan it to shoot like the shots where we wouldn't see an audience, shoot those first before the crowd gets there. And then once the crowd's there, get all the shots that involve an audience. So it was like a lot of kind of math to just get the shots done. And then when you add on top of that, it's like 100 degrees. And the actors are rightly nervous because they're dancing with incredible musicians and incredible folkloric dancers around them. And everybody knows what's going on except for us. Thank God, Julio, who is the choreographer for most of the film, he's also a really, really good Afro-Cuban ballet, Afro-Cuban like folkloric dancer. So he was able to help control the music and control the dance that Yonah and Evelyn were doing. Otherwise, I didn't really know what I was doing. It was basically like Juan, Pablo, go. And I had the Bolek, I had a 16 millimeter camera, and we were just kind of just trying to get it all and pray that it would work,
Oh, beautiful. What were you shooting with that scene, Juan Pablo? Do you remember? If Kaveh had the Bolex, did you have digital? What were you doing?
Yeah, I had the Alexa with the Super Valters, and we were both trying to catch as much as we could, because I mean that I think we did as Kaveh says because we couldn't afford to have so many extras paid, but also it was worth it because the warmth and the energy of having real people, it makes the scene, I think, more real, but it also needs from you a lot of energy to put, you know. So I was with the camera again, dancing with them and trying to focus on people and see the excitement of the musicians and being really, really close to them. It was very, very fun. And as Kaveh said, we need to plan a lot to have our shots that tells the story first, and then to bring all the rest of the ingredients that makes the energy feels alive of the scene. So it was cool.
Good advice for students of cinema too. Get the shots that you need to tell this story before the crowds arrive. It's so wonderful to see you all here. And my last sort of invitation, because I know you all haven't been together in a Zoom room since the premiere at the Miami Film Festival last week. Kaveh, any impressions having just emerged from that film festival in Miami on how the audience received it? And you were there. You were there in person, am I right?
I was there, yeah. I was there. I mean, it was so nice to see it on a big screen because it had been a long time since I could do that. And I definitely recommend, I guess it's too late now, but for anyone who's watching this, if you can possibly watch it with good sound, because we worked really hard on the sound and the image, you know. I think that I'm just really proud of the cinematic properties of the film. And I think you can really get lost in it. And so seeing it on the big screen, I was able to get lost in it. And it was really nice to share it with an audience.
Yeah.
And the audience was really, really enthusiastic. It's an interesting film because it appeals to like kind of different kinds of crowds. You know, there's like all the Cubans in Miami, obviously. And then there's the whole Iranian contingent who all showed up. And then there's kind of the art house crowd. And then there's people who are into dance. And those four groups of people don't necessarily hang out in the same places normally. So it was kind of cool to see how they were interacting and what people responded to, like the Cubans, when Leonardo throws the squash into the frozen ice, they're all—
That's the best part.
Yeah. But the Cubans are all crying, laughing, and the Iranians maybe don't really understand what's going on. And then, vice versa. So it was cool to see how different people were feeling about it.
Well, thank you. It's been just so wonderful to have you for this talk back. And we really look forward to hopefully seeing you in person someday, como cineastas o como bailarinas. If you can come visit us in Oregon, the Ashland Independent Film Festival, esta es tu casa.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias.